and keeping it away. So first things first, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Evan Hirsch. I'm a functional medicine MD, and I specialize in helping people get rid of their chronic fatigue. I wrote a book about it called Fix Your Fatigue. I've got a Facebook group, and I'm on a mission to help 100,000 people resolve their chronic fatigue. So if you know anybody who's got fatigue, send them my way because I'd love to help them. So the second thing that I have to tell you is that I have a cold right now. So if I need to sneeze during this, please forgive me. So let's dive in and let's talk about pain. So I see a lot of body pain in my practice, and that's why it's a really good fit for me being a fatigue specialist to give you this talk today. So let's talk about pain. So what causes pain? We're going to work our way backwards from, what causes pain to what causes that, and then what are the causes of that? Because we always want to go to find the cause. As a specialist in functional medicine and environmental medicine, I want to find the cause all the way out until there's no more causes left, because when you find that ultimate cause and you remove it, everything gets better. And just so you guys know a little bit about me, I had fatigue for 5 years. My wife had fatigue for 3 years. We resolved our fatigue, and now I have this practice and I'm on this mission to help 100,000 people. So that's just a little bit of my story. And the reason why I have this mission is because I don't want anybody to suffer the way that me and my family did. Okay, so what causes pain, or what is pain? So pain is an inflammatory response that is normally a normal thing. It's the body telling us that something is wrong and we have to pay attention. Who's heard of the word inflammation before? If you have, say I or write I in the comments. So most of us have. It was on the cover of Time magazine a while back. And so what is inflammation? So inflammation is the body's response to a stimulus, to an injury, to pain. And part of it is actually causing pain. So inflammation is the immune system's reaction to something. So this immune system could be, let's take a sprained ankle. So you sprain your ankle, and what ends up happening? The ankle swells, right? And this is because a bunch of the body gets the message, hey, there's something going wrong. Let's send a whole bunch of troops to that area and let's get it fixed. And so these people, or these immune cells, go to that particular area and they start doing their work. They decrease blood flow initially, and then they increase blood flow and they start clotting, and you get swelling, and you get warmth, and you get pain, and you get redness. And those are all cardinal signs of inflammation. So inflammation, people forget, is really a normal process, and without it, that ankle is not going to heal. So it's a very important process to pay attention to. Now, what happens with chronic inflammation? So this is when the immune system gets turned on and it's trying to get rid of whatever is there, and it doesn't get turned off. So you end up getting this chronic inflammation, which is this pain, swelling, redness, and I missed one. Pain, swelling, redness, and whatever. I'll come back to it. That's the cold talking. So those are all very important signs of inflammation. So then, okay, so that's the immune system being triggered by something. So then what is the immune system being triggered by? So in many times it's being triggered by what I call the usual suspects, which are toxins. So we're talking about heavy metals, chemicals. So we're talking chronic inflammation now. We're not talking about you sprain your ankle. We're talking about chronic body pain, okay? So heavy metals, chemicals, and we're going to come back to these, molds, infections, food toxins or allergies, negative emotions, and electromagnetic fields. So I call these the usual suspects. And so when I'm looking at inflammation and I'm looking at an immune system that's out of whack, I'm always looking at two things. I'm looking at what is deficient that needs to be replaced to fix the immune system. And then I'm looking at these toxicities that the immune system is reacting to. Like, for example, so if you have a heavy metal like mercury in your tissues, let's say it's in your thyroid, the immune system is going to attack the thyroid, trying to get rid of it. The immune system's job is to get rid of the crap that's in the body that's not supposed to be there. It says, hey, you're foreign, let me get rid of you. That's my job. So it starts attacking the thyroid, and you get autoimmune thyroid disease, Hashimoto's, autoimmunity, thyroiditis. So that's just like an example of what's happening here. So that's one of the excesses that we look at. But let's start by looking at the deficiencies. So what is the main anti-inflammatory in the body? The main anti-inflammatory is cortisol, which is produced in the adrenal gland, which is a small triangular gland, sits on top of the kidneys and produces cortisol, which is what cortisone and prednisone come from. Okay, so those are pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories, synthetic anti-inflammatories that come from this cortisol, but cortisol is our natural anti-inflammatory. It also happens to be our natural stress responder. So if you have stress in the body, whether it's one of the usual suspects like I talked about, like a physical stressor, or an emotional or a mental stressor, or you just had a car accident, knock on wood, those things are all going to increase the stress in the body, decrease your cortisol, and consequently increase your inflammation, because cortisol is there to manage your immune system and to regulate your inflammation. So the first thing that I look at is what is your cortisol level? And we replace that with adrenal products that I really like. Oftentimes they're adaptogenic herbs that boost adrenal function, increasing anti-inflammatory activity and decreasing overall pain. The second thing, so the category that we're looking at is replacing hormones. So adrenal hormones was that first one. The second one is thyroid hormones. So the thyroid plays a huge role in inflammation. I can't tell you how many people I get their thyroid up to the dose that they need, and so much of their pain and dysfunction goes away. Their inflammation decreases greatly. So that's number 2. Number 3 are the sex hormones. So a lot of people report an increase in body pain as they get older, and they move past 50 into menopause, or for men into andropause, where the testosterone goes down. And those are very much linked with inflammation. So if people need replacement of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone as they get older, we can do that, and that decreases inflammation. Now, most of the time, you can actually boost adrenal function and thyroid function and optimize those, and you don't have to replace sex hormones. So just an interesting tidbit. The next thing we want to replace is nutrient deficiencies. So there's a lot of great research on B12 deficiency being associated with chronic pain, vitamin D deficiency, magnesium deficiency. So magnesium is a wonderful muscle relaxer. So calcium causes, and this is naturally in the physiology of the body, calcium causes muscles to contract, and magnesium causes muscles to relax. So incredibly important to make sure that you're taking bowel tolerance magnesium, meaning as much magnesium as you can take that doesn't give you the runs. And I talk about this more in my book called Fix Your Fatigue, which is on Amazon. So check it out if you want some more information on that. So that's replacing the nutrients. So we've talked about replacing hormones, we talked about replacing nutrients, and now let's jump into the things that we want to remove. So let's talk about heavy metals. So 100,000 pounds of mercury are dumped into our oceans every year. Is that amazing? Mercury is a known neurotoxin. Most of this comes from coal plants that goes into the atmosphere and then ends up in the oceans. So pretty much everything that you eat out of the oceans right now has mercury in it. Now the bigger the fish or the bigger the seafood, the more mercury is going to be in it. So tuna, halibut, swordfish, they have huge amounts of mercury. In fact, a conservative organization like the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, no longer recommends tuna fish for pregnant women because the rates or the risk of neurotoxicity is way too high for their babies. That's huge. That is the conventional establishment admitting that there is a huge problem right now with mercury. And I grew up on tuna fish sandwiches and just had a huge level of mercury that was causing me a lot of body pain that I got rid of and made a big difference. And I see that all the time in my patients. And sometimes, this stuff is from your environment, like eating tuna fish or having mercury fillings or with lead. being exposure to lead paint or lead gasoline back in the 70s and before. But some of it actually is passed down through the mother, through the placenta. So mothers give their babies all their good stuff, but then also all their bad stuff too. So oftentimes you can have, it can trigger autoimmunity, and it can trigger a number of issues too. So making sure and testing and figuring out if you have any heavy metals is incredibly important for decreasing overall body pain. Next up is chemicals. So 80,000, I think it's 84,000 chemicals we're exposed to every single year in this country, in the United States anyway. And most of those are not regulated by the FDA, unfortunately. So these chemicals can cause autoimmunity. They trigger the immune system. Once again, the immune system sees them as foreign, goes and attacks them, causes inflammation, can't get rid of them, and the inflammation becomes chronic. And these chemicals can include plastics. If you drink out of plastic water bottles, like most of us do, exposures to perfumes, skin products. There's a great website, the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org/skin deep. And you can look for, if this is the one thing you take away from this lecture, this is what you should do. Go to this website and search for the products that you use and see how toxic they are. So that's ewg.org/skin deep. And that's going to really help you try to live a more chemical-free lifestyle. Get rid of the perfumes and the colognes and the toxins that you spray in your home. It's a huge problem. Very quickly, pesticides are becoming a major cause of type 2 diabetes. So these are affecting us on so many different levels, and we have to get clean and we have to remove them. And don't get overwhelmed by this presentation. It's very easy to do. All you got to do is come back to it and just try to do one thing a month. Just one thing, okay? Create yourself a schedule and just do it, and that's going to make a huge difference in your life. So, excuse me. And so we talked about heavy metals, we talked about chemicals. Let's talk about molds. So half of all the buildings built in this country, in the United States, have water damage, and most of those have mold. Unfortunately, and even the newer homes, because if you're driving around town and you see the newer homes that are being built and it's raining, guess what? That wood is getting covered in rain, and then you seal it up nice and tight and make it nice and warm, and that's a perfect environment for mold to grow. Particle board, drywall, these are all wonderful food for molds, unfortunately. Mold is a neurotoxin. Mold increases inflammation. And once again, the immune system sees it as foreign and goes after it and tries to remove it and ends up in a chronic inflammatory state. So heavy metal chemicals, molds, infections. So I treat a lot of people with some chronic infections. Epstein-Barr can cause body pain, cytomegalovirus. But the big one that I see is called Bartonella. Now, Bartonella is a bacteria. It travels oftentimes with Lyme or Borrelia. It's found in 50 to 75% of all domestic animals. And it's pretty ubiquitous, so it's everywhere, but it really takes hits from, like stressful hits like heavy metal, chemical, mold exposure, car accident, breakup, whatever, that upends the adrenals, upends the immune system, and allows these bugs to become more opportunistic. But Bartonella will cause some of the following symptoms: headaches, neck pain, body pain, problems sleeping, anxiety, depression, pain on the bottom of the feet or discomfort on the bottom of the feet, or people have been diagnosed with plantar fasciitis when usually it's Bartonella. Cramps in the legs, so muscle cramps, calf cramps, usually at night, little red dots on the body, thyroid issues. So those are most of them. You don't have to have all of them. You can have some of them. But a lot of those, if you have any of those symptoms, you should really check and see whether or not you have Bartonella. So that's infections, heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections. So let's talk about food, which all of you guys are super interested in at Adapt for Life. So incredibly important, grains, gluten, dairy, corn, especially GMO corn, GMO soy, coffee, caffeine. A lot of these can be incredibly inflammatory. especially if the immune system is already reacting. So I tell people your body is like a barrel, and it's full of this crap, these usual suspects that I'm talking about. You know, and if you're full of mercury and you're having gluten, you're going to be a lot more reactive than if you don't have any mercury in your body, because the immune system is just already hyperactive and responding to everything. So you drop some of that food on there and it's just increased inflammation. Now, I always recommend that people eliminate gluten, eliminate grains, and eliminate dairy. Those are the three that I consider to be must removals. That's how I live my life. That's how I find that it's the most helpful for my patients. You know, paleo diets, I believe, are really the way to go. Even if you don't eat meat, you know, eating that way is incredibly healthy. Grains are just so toxic, and that's that low carb lifestyle that's so incredibly important. And so let's move on. So heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, allergies, emotions. So negative emotions, emotional, mental stress. Like I said, this is all going to cause stress on the adrenals, on cortisol, that is going to end up decreasing your anti-inflammatory response and increasing the inflammation in the body. And then the last thing is electromagnetic frequencies. So anything that has a battery, you know, your Wi-Fi, you know, if I could tell you one thing about that is turn off your Wi-Fi at night, or better yet, get your house or get your work or whatever, get it wired to decrease the amount of rays that we're getting. You know, don't listen to the radio in the car. Try not to use Bluetooth, use wired headsets instead. You know, keep your phone as far away from you as possible at all times. Turn off the mobile data, the Wi-Fi, all that sort of stuff whenever you can. Don't sleep with your phone next to your head. So decreasing your exposure to a lot of those rays can also decrease your inflammation. So that was a lot. Hopefully you stayed with me here. So we talked about the causes of pain. We talked about inflammation, and then we talked about the causes of inflammation. So the deficiencies that are present that need to be replaced, and then the excesses that are present that need to be removed. So let's jump into some of the questions here. So what about if it's not farm raised, and what if it's wild caught? Kathy, thanks so much for that question. So wild caught is great, so much better, but still everything in the oceans, you know, if you go up to the Arctic or you're going up to Alaska, the mercury content is going to be less, but wild caught still has that issue, unfortunately. Let's see what other questions we have here. Magnesium is key. Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. I'm glad you agree. How do you know you are low on these? So you're going to want to get some testing to determine whether or not you have these deficiencies. So blood testing for vitamin B12 and homocysteine, folate, red blood cell magnesium, and it's actually red blood cell folate would be better as well. So you can get that in blood testing. 25-hydroxy vitamin D is the test for vitamin D. You can also, and you can go to directlabs.com and you can find a lot of these lab tests that you don't need a doctor's order for. So you can go on there, you can order it, you pay for it, and either the kit comes to your home or you get a printout. You can also go to fyf.mymedlab.com. So that's fyf.mymedlab.com, and that's kind of a basic panel that I put together that I recommend to my fatigued patients, which can also apply in this case, and I don't make any money off of either of those. So I hope that was helpful. Let's see, do we have any other questions on here? Not at this time. Thank you so much. If you guys are, if you like this video, please subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up. And then if you want to hear more about my videos and my work, you can check me out at fixyourfatigue.org. That's fix, FIXYOUR-FATIGUE.org. And check out my free Facebook group as well, and that's Fix Your Fatigue with Dr. Evan. It is a closed group, but apply and say that you are on here and you will be accepted. And I do videos on there every week. And my goal, like I said, is to help 100,000 people resolve their chronic fatigue. And if you want to learn more, also you can check out the book that's on Amazon. It's on Kindle as well as paperback. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have an amazing day.